Light's good here.
Welcome to the Tibet Center. We will begin with a prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all people living there, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods for accomplishing the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. Now the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharmas, called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form, emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors in consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Talyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisattva. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, for profound practice should just as the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering and the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Generating bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So let us recite, maybe we'll do 3 Om Mani Padme Hum malas. So Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra of compassion. So as you recite it, try to conjure up compassion. Compassion being the wish to remove the suffering of others. So you are working towards developing this wish. And if you actually have this wish, you dwell on it as you're reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. And then you dedicate the merit, the virtue of these good thoughts to the suffering of all sentient beings, to the removal of that suffering. Okay. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Om Mani Padme Hum. Good evening, good evening. So, compassion. Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra of compassion. It is the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, here with 1,000 arms. So, as we recite a mantra, the more we can think about the essence of it, what we're trying to cultivate, the more effective it is. And so, while reciting it, to really think about the suffering of others and develop that wish to remove that suffering is what we have to do. And to get to the point of developing compassion, we have to, first of all, recognize our own state of suffering. We have to the suffering of others, compassion towards the suffering of others, will remain in the realm of, a generality that doesn't actually touch us if we don't understand what suffering is and understand suffering at the different levels of suffering. We have to have, in recognizing our own suffering, the aspiration that develops out of that recognition is a wish to get out of cyclic existence, is what we in English refer to as renunciation. We are renouncing our preoccupation with the affairs of cyclic existence, with the affairs of this life. So a recognition of our own suffering has very profound ramifications. It's not a simple little thing. I'm not comfortable. I'm not happy. I'm not feeling well. It's this deep dissatisfaction. But dissatisfaction sounds crummy. It sounds light. It sounds. It doesn't have any of the profundity of what it really means to have gone beyond a certain satisfaction with the situation here at present, and seeing through our situation and really seeing the state of I'm using this word suffering over and over. I don't know that if you use the word suffering over and over, it ceases to mean anything. But we have to get to a point where we really feel the fact that this is terrible. This just doesn't work. Cyclic existence. We are all. Now that I look around and see everyone. Good evening.
You mean dukkha? That's what you're trying to get at, the word for suffering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in Tibetan, dungel.
Bhikkhu Bodhi, so that's the situation where it's impossible to find total satisfaction. That's his little, your friend Bhikkhu Bodhi, and he defined it that way. That's a tough word, but some don't translate it. And then we don't know anything.
Well, I think that if we understand that the situation in life that we all experience is pretty wonderful, is pretty great. I mean, yes.
See me on the train,
we have,
yeah.
We have air conditioning.
Comparatively.
We
yes.
have hot water. We have
You have chocolate bakers.
the ability to communicate with each other. We have, yes, chocolate bakers, yes. We
Sister
have,
ate that whole cake that I bought one time. That's how good it was.
I mean, we have access to, we're comfortable. If we really see the situation of others, if we just go beyond it, and if we understand the laws of cause and effect well enough to understand where we've been in the past and where we're likely to be in the future, suddenly our situation, we can begin to recognize how this is a little moment of wonder, and I'm well into the process of feeling what it's like to get old. Tony, you're not there yet, but you will be soon.
Beyond that. I'm in the bar, though, as a matter of fact, just appearing here.
You know, we talk about people living long lives and how wonderful it is, but it gets more and more painful. And then what happens? You die.
What a joke.
So I think that as we sort of look at suffering, we have to look, as we work at acknowledging and recognizing suffering, we have to go beyond, the little bumps that we experience and really see it. Try to see the real vibrant suffering that is cyclic existence. And recognizing that, as I say, will lead us to a wish to extricate ourselves from this situation. That's renunciation. Now, that's we say that that's a unique and extraordinary spiritual goal, but it's not the ultimate. It's not one that where we are. It's not the essence of what His Holiness is teaching here, because it's not one where we are aiming towards being of benefit to others. Compassion is a step further from that, because that goal, that determination to get out of the situation that we finally recognize as being painful, is for ourselves. It's, as I say, renunciation. It is seeking peace. We have to go to the point of recognizing that just as I am in this situation, each and every other person is. And as we open our hearts in that way, then we develop the wish to remove their suffering, compassion. So as you recite Om Mani Padme Hum, you should go through those steps. You should work at recognizing the state of suffering that is cyclic existence, and get to a point where you really feel the pain of it, or recognize. You can think of what the future will be. You can think of what the past has been, and you get to a point of having that wish to get out, and then recognizing that others are in that state, are experiencing the same thing. And you also acknowledge how everything we have is dependent on the kindness of others. When we put those two things together, a recognition of how dependent we are on others and the suffering that they are experiencing, then we really will feel compassion. And so all of these things are what we think about as we recite Om Mani Padme Hum. it should have. I mean, of course, if you're driving, if you're walking, and you're just saying "Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum," that's good. But the more you can actually bring these thoughts into your recitation, the more powerful the recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum will be. And just briefly, Om is a combination of A, U, Ma, which are the body, speech, and mind of myself, in its so in my unenlightened form. In other words, me now, my body, my speech, my mind. It also Om represents the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. In other words, when I attain enlightenment. Mani and Padme. Mani represents method. Padme represents wisdom. Method meaning qualities such as compassion, love, generosity, patience, all those types of qualities. And Padme represents wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And it is by cultivating those qualities and by cultivating wisdom and uniting these two that we arrive at that ultimate state of the transformation of our body, speech, and mind at our level into the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha, which is the goal. So if you can think about what the meaning of these letters is, the Om Mani Padme Hum, if you can think about what compassion is, all of those thoughts really make the recitation of Om Mani Padme Hum into something powerful, rather than just a nice sound. So, we have been discussing beyond religion, and I don't think that anything that I just said is necessarily religious or tied to a particular religious dogma. Of course, I'm maybe a little bit accepting things like the laws of karma, which maybe I've already come to consider to be the laws of cause and effect, natural laws that exist. But maybe that's maybe I'm a card-carrying Buddhist.
You better be.
Yeah, but as we discuss beyond religion, we are, and the whole idea of something being beyond religion, we have to sort of carefully analyze these things, trying to present them in a way that is not dependent on the acceptance of anything dogmatic. So I hope I've done that. I think that a recognition of our suffering state is something that isn't necessarily Buddhist or Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or anything. It's reality. And a recognition of the suffering of others is also reality. A recognition of our dependence on others for everything we have is reality. I find it very helpful to sit. His Holiness has often said, these are thoughts that you can have as you're lying in bed before you wake up. You can think about how dependent you are on others. You can I look at this house and I think of all the work that went into building it, and it must have been built within a 6 or 8 or maybe 10 months, but still, it's none of this could I have done. I'm a total klutz when it comes to hammering and all that kind of stuff. So I'm totally dependent on others for this, and the air conditioning system, and so much of it. I just look around and I think, I'm so grateful to those who have done all the work that enables me to live comfortably in this place. And then, the road system that brought you all here, and the cars that you're driving, and all these things are dependent on others. And if we sit in the morning and think about this, we develop this appreciation for how dependent we are on others for everything. We may go into the kitchen and cook something and think, well, I'm cooking my own meal, but all the ingredients, the stove, the refrigerator that kept the things fresh, all of these things are made by others, and then the production of the food. The more we can think about that, the more we develop this appreciation for others. So that's a thought that we can really begin our day with, and we can then go to the next step of that thought, which is that all the difficulties that I'm experiencing are due to my own past actions, not to everybody else. Sorry. And if we come to the conclusion that actually that difficulty that I'm confronting is that guy's fault, we should really diffuse that and really think about these laws of karma and see that that problem would not have arisen had it not been due to something from the past that I'm responsible for. There is not anything that I experience now that is not due to how I've behaved in the past. And I happen to think that acceptance is an extraordinary thing, to really assume responsibility for the situation that we are experiencing. It can be humbling, it can be all sorts of things, but it's extraordinary. It means that we have the ability to determine the future. It is in our hands what happens in the future. So it is with an acceptance of all of that that we approach beyond religion. And as I say, I hope that none of the things I'm saying are considered to not be beyond religion, but to be somehow tied up in religion. I hope that they can be viewed as sort of the natural way. I think that we get so preoccupied with, we sort of buy into the way we lead our lives, that we don't realize to what degree we have created the situations we are confronted with. We sort of think of ourselves as victims of life rather than the writers of the script. Okay.
The other one's very claustrophobic. You feel you can't do it. It's disempowering when you think it's everybody else's. Whereas I create, okay. So that empowers you in a way, I found, but there's no way out thinking the other way. I mean, I went nuts myself. That's not good.
It empowers us to do something about it. I hope. I was going to say inshallah,
I'm sure
but I don't think Allah has
Yeah.
anything to do with it.
No,
I think
no,
it's
no.
us.
Maybe we could use instead of spirituality versus religion, because religion's just the way it sits in people's minds. That religions tends to be like dogmatic and stuff, whereas maybe spirituality is more individual and, you know, refers to more a personal search. I don't know. That word could be overworked too, you know, that's a problem. Spiritual incense for sale.
Yes, spiritual. Yes, it's incense and it's
Yeah, we could do anything.
those bowls,
Massage sessions, anything.
crystals.
Dentist. Ooh, very good. That'll solve the problem.
And candles, yes, crystals and candles.
That's my
So,
scented
crystals and candles can definitely help, but we ultimately have to do the work. So, we have gotten to
candle. Page 80.
84, the bottom of 84. Do we have extra copies of?
Look up
You're
all this
okay?
stuff. Let me see. I'll tell you. Oh. Darren, any more extra copies of Beyond Religion?
You bought one, then you have to bring
Look on the shelf.
Any extra
Any
copies?
extra copies of this? Yeah. Well, good. Bring them out. Bring them out of the kitchen.
I can go with that.
Carol, can you
So-
turn on that light? People can read easy.
Up,
Just turn
it's
the
right
switch.
underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that thing.
that.
Thank you, man.
Magic, isn't it extraordinary?
Think
I
of all the
mean,
people who made that bowl. It's true,
Yes.
though. It's really true.
and the wiring, and then you do the whole wiring, and then where does it go? How does it get to?
It's the God's house.
When the internet began, I came to live in America, and I was living in my grandmother's apartment, and I got a big computer, and she came into my room. She was in her 90s or maybe just 100 or something, and she said, "So what is this internet business?" And sat down next to me, and I showed her how I was receiving emails, and I could read the newspaper and all those kind of things on it and other websites, and then I showed her there was this lovely email that I had received that had fireworks, and I showed her, "Look at this," and she said, "Oh, I like that, and can I see that again?" And I did, and then I discovered it was a virus. Every time I
Grandma Boaz.
and she kept saying, "Where does this come from? Where is it all? What?"
Well, yeah. You still don't know.
So, we began, well, we'll start with global responsibility. So, here, there is societal responsibility, the responsibility sort of outside that we sort of take for granted. I think we can even think of like the bureaucracy that keeps everything together. I don't know, you'd call it the administrative system, what makes everything work. The people who do the work that makes life work. So there is, the responsibility assumed by the members of society who are assuming responsibility, the hospital staff, etc., the electrical workers, the garbage people, all the things that, and we can sort of, wish for and sort of invest in a thought of their responsibility for our situation. Or else we can really look in at our own, what we can do. And here His Holiness starts by saying, occasionally I notice that people are making a convenient distinction between ethics on the personal level and ethics on the wider social level. To me, such attitudes are fundamentally flawed as they overlook the interdependence of our world. That individual ethics, or rather their absence, can have an impact on the lives of many is powerfully demonstrated by the global financial crisis that began in 2008. The repercussions of which are still being felt around the world. It revealed the way the unbridled greed on the part of a few can adversely affect the lives of millions. So just as in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, we started to take the danger of religious extremism and intolerance seriously, so too, in the wake of the financial crisis, should we take the dangers of greed and dishonesty seriously. When greed is seen as acceptable, even praiseworthy, there is clearly something wrong with our collective value system.
Greed is good, right? Remember that?
Sorry?
I said, are you looking for someone to disagree?
No,
Not
but
yet.
to explore.
No, it's hard to disagree. It's
When people reinforce that ignorant impulse, then it starts to look like something that's really, we should go after and read it. It's,
The cat that.
the cat that is not greedy.
This cat. I'm not going to judge it.
This cat.
So he's saying that, like, basically when greed becomes part of, like, the culture, it becomes especially tricky because then it's like you can't tell greed from anything else, essentially.
I would say.
Like, if I looked at pop culture and I went, okay, you know, the most celebrity of celebrities in the world are famous for making a lot of money, and it's actually encouraged and looked up to that they're making a lot of money. It becomes kind of sewn into the aspirations of a person to make a lot of money, to the point that you can't quite tell, is that good or is it greedy or is it success or is it victory or
It's the Donald.
what's, and I guess then it's like, well, what do you do with it, you know? If you
Right.
want a lot of money, but then you do good with it,
And then
or I
what?
don't know.
Yeah.
But it seems like sometimes greed is sewn into maybe pop culture or culture in a way that feels hard to divide from aspirational success and just money-hungry greed. Alone.
So explain aspirational success.
Like, I think that someone could say, or especially, I don't know, when I see young people around me going, gosh, I want what they have. That they have so much money, they're famous, they have so much success. And it might not even look like greed, it just looks like they're smart, they're cunning, they're clever, they got, you know, high up in life. But maybe it's what's sewn in it is, you know, getting money and having like the luxuries of life in a lot of ways. But sometimes it almost seems hard to decipher. Is that greed or is that just intelligence that someone was successful in life? And I suppose maybe it's the intention behind it.
Wouldn't you think that anytime somebody has to have so much, when so many people have so little, that whether it's money or possessions or almost anything, that it is a form of greed? I mean, it doesn't even have to be, right now, it's an extreme because it can happen mercurically, or isn't that the word? Like, it just happens so quickly these days because of the nature of the internet and the way the money flows.
The
so
velocity of
quickly.
money, yeah.
Yeah, compared to how it used to be, but in any case, if you have so much, and whether you're doing it because you actually recognize the money, or you're just feeding your ego, and it makes you feel better to have things that people envy you for, that's a form of greed too. But the other problem is that it's part of our society, and it's part of capitalism. I mean, capitalism
be.
really allows it to happen as a society more than the other, like socialism or communism. I mean, they tried to use a system to even things out, and obviously it didn't work in all cases, because there's things go wrong, and there's bad behavior in all government forms, because again, it's the human being and it's the
That's
ego.
right.
And
That you hit the thing, the individual that makes.
yeah, it's the
macro.
parts that
The
build
micro
up
make
the-
the makes the.
Yeah, but
That's
but
what
the
we're
thing
doing
is
here.
that anytime
Cleaning up.
you lose track of your, the connections that Nicholas was talking about, like, we're dependent on everyone, and for you to forget how much you owe to everyone and just think that you deserve, how can anybody think that they deserve so much and then so many people have to go without? It's baffling to me.
I think you're right, that society is creating something that we don't see as greed until it's far too late. You start out young and, you have to get good grades because you want to get into a good school.
Because you want to be successful,
Why
because
do
you
you
want to
wanna
make
get
money,
into
you
a
want to
good
have the big
school?
house, you want to
Yes.
have the,
It doesn't have to do with anything.
right.
But
Well,
once you buy into that, it's like, oh, I got this college, this is
Yeah.
great, I'm gonna be able to get a great job,
Mhm.
and you just go down that cycle without thinking about what's the rationale, what's the why behind why you wanna do all those things.
Yeah.
What's the why behind
I
that?
remember His Holiness saying in something that he wrote, I can't remember what book that was in, but that in a first world country, there's a lot more obstacles to understanding, or maybe to understanding compassion in a way, because you're able to have a lot more, maybe in some sense, like.
Say that again?
That in a first world country, if everything comes very easily, like you're saying, the light and electricity, air conditioning in every building we go into,
Trust fund.
the ability to get money is kind of like top dog. That's a big aspiration. People really want it. And if you can, then the more kind of luxuries that you have, it's potential to distance yourself further from acknowledging your own suffering, because you maybe aren't as in touch with it. There's a lot of distraction. And so it always struck me is that if you have less,
separated from your own suffering or from the suffering of others?
Masks it.
I think it can I think you're saying it can kind of mask it or distract you from being able to identify your own suffering in some ways. Like, I don't feel right, I'm gonna go, in my hot tub. I don't feel right,
Well,
I'm
it's
gonna
over.
watch a movie. I don't feel right, I'll eat more sugar or whatever. Like, you can have more in your life. I always thought that was interesting to say, if you have less, you're actually much more in touch with how what's going on potentially, because there's less obstacles between you and your state of being potentially. But yeah, it seems that line between someone having aspirations of success and then greed, it feels murky and flimsy at times, at least in pop culture. Sometimes when I see it, I go, I don't quite know where the target is.
So, in what you've said and what you said, I think what we've all said, that society today is complicated and needs an infrastructure to make it work. And within the mechanics of it all, there are these opportunities to play the system to a certain extent and do very well. And business schools teach these things very well. But we can do the same jobs. We can be lawyers, and we can be business people, and we can be entrepreneurs, and we can be with the intention of serving, of benefiting, of bringing a product to the world that is helpful, and working really towards having it be helpful. And so even playing this system and getting the good education and making our way up within a corporate ladder with an intention to really serve society becomes a virtuous process, while the same ascent can be selfish. So it really depends on our motivation.
The
It
intention,
really,
right.
yeah.
It seems you could make billions of dollars, but if you gave it away, or if you, what you do with it, seems to be the thing that, you know, makes such a difference.
Well, it's kind of like the guy that started Giovanni, the yogurt company. He opened this is what I heard, I don't know for a fact, but anyway, it's all profit sharing. He decided how much he was gonna make, and then after that, everything goes back to every worker.
That's nice.
But it's also kind of like there are other countries where they actually have that baked into the system, where the lowest person in the company and the highest person in the company can only be maybe 25 degrees.
In Japan.
Right, there's like ethics instilled in the actual industry.
As opposed to here, where somebody can ask for 47 billion or $1 million for a bonus, and the day after they fire 15,000 workers. I'm not saying that anybody, did that, but they did.
Not that they get names.
That was
Exactly. But it's an absurd way to live, and then, but that's also kind of, it plays back into the distortion of our society and ego, where he thinks that he knows how best to spend money, right? That's why he wants it, because he thinks he's smarter than everybody and he can make that decision better. But I think it's interesting if you can let go of your ego and actually just give it to the people who help make the product, then they get to decide. Everybody is an individual, and they decide how it best helps the people around them, like their family or their friends or their whatever. And that would be kind of nice. It would be kind of amazing if everybody acted virtuously. It's like a reality that would be. You want to make a joke like, is that Canada?
So I think that
Not the Western part.
we shouldn't, it's easy to judge others. It's really easy to make examples of those people who, but in this, in the work that we're talking about doing, it's only about how I behave. And even if the system, if we do recognize it as being sort of rotten, all that matters is our contribution to it, and that our contribution to it, there are these. We can think of sort of two aspects. There is what we do to help, and then there is the work we do inside ourselves. And here what we've been discussing so far is how the work we do inside ourselves, we actually have to work towards assuming responsibility for others. We actually have to work towards cultivating compassion. We actually have to work towards maintaining and developing a virtuous motivation. We also have to work at developing the discernment to enable us to implement that attitude effectively. And that's the work that we have to do within the system that we've all described very
Can you give
well.
an example of that implementation?
So, if I have let's say I've worked to have this feeling of a wish to remove the suffering of others, compassion. I have a wish to serve. Now I have to figure out how best to do so, what to do. How do I actually implement that motivation? what do I mean, I have to, that's where getting the good education and developing the skills to actually serve, whether it's as a doctor or a nurse, which are sort of evident ways by which we can help others, or, if we recognize our limitations and feel that, if I were a good Uber driver and I really helped and I did this in a way that really was beneficial, and I could also feed my family and whatever. I mean, in other words, you don't have to become a doctor to serve others. That's what I mean. So thinking about it, figuring out how to implement our abilities in a way that helps, doesn't harm, etc. That's the just.
So it's like it's where the right speech, right action, right comes into play when you just remind yourself whatever you're doing, follow those rules.
And chocolate is very important. Baking is very
Yes,
important.
important.
It uplifts
Yeah.
the spirit. I was walking down Fifth Avenue yesterday, and I passed the smell of chocolate. It uplifted me.
Was that your cologne?
It's a happy product.
They won't
And what was also wonderful was not needing to have any.
Yeah.
The smell did it.
Also, the work is the mindfulness to keep yourself on track. That's so. The mental work is difficult.
Yeah,
You
it's
have
not
such a
just starting. You have
propensity to go
to.
the other way. So you always think, this is what I'm doing. At least
Yeah.
for me. But just the smell is enough, Nikki.
Yeah. I was
Remind you
I
next
was
time
actually happy
Weed
not to
Corgan's
have
over, I
any.
will just wave it in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, that's enough, Nikki.
It's over.
So in this age of globalization, the time has come for us to acknowledge that our lives are deeply interconnected and to recognize that our behavior has a global dimension. When we do so, we will see that our own interests are best served by what is in the best interest of the wider human community. By contrast, if we concentrate exclusively on our inner development and neglect the wider problems of the world, or if, having recognized these, we are apathetic about trying to solve them, then we've overlooked something fundamental. Apathy, in my view, is itself a form of selflessness. For our approach to ethics to be truly meaningful, we must, of course, care about the world. This is what I mean by the principle of global responsibility, which is a key part of my approach to secular ethics. Now, I think this is interesting, important. The whole idea that it is not sufficient to simply work on ourselves. We have to implement this compassion or whatever it is. We have to actually help others. I find it interesting. I'll tell you why. Because we monks are often accused of contemplating our navels and not really getting out there and helping. There was a funny, His Holiness came down to the monasteries and was saying to the monks, we must look at the Christians, and Christians create hospitals around the world and help poor people and establish schools to help others. We sit on our monasteries and we study and we really work on ourselves. We must work towards helping society. So in the Tibetan settlement where I was living, there's a hospital, and there's a a nunnery right next to the hospital. And so the nuns, taking what His Holiness had said and putting it into action, began to help the sick in the hospital. And most of the sick were monks. And so the nuns would come and help the monks, and they would fall in love with each other, and then the monks and the nuns would leave their monasteries and nunneries. And so the head of the nunnery had to say, enough of this. So these things are always tricky.
Yeah.
But we cannot we cannot have our inner work, our inner search or whatever, be simply selfish. It has to. We have to work towards having it benefit, and I think that's a very important.
So well written, so well thought out. A lot of meaning in just like a page one.
A lot of meaning, but as I, there is that Sufi saying that I'm very fond of. The unwise man tries to help, tries to change others. The medium-wise man tries to change his environment. The wise man tries to change himself. Now, if you really, the conclusion of that might be that you really have to work simply on yourself, while in fact that work on yourself must incorporate some service to society.
It's like dependent on others, almost, yeah.
Sounds Sufi.
Interesting.
Inshallah.
It seems like the example you gave was very sweet of the tricky situation with the nuns and monks, but it seems like going out to serve people, you're put in a tricky situation every time you move, just about. Example, going to become a doctor or a nurse, there's a lot of competition to get into a school to pursue that service. And so your motivation is partly like, oh, please let it be me that gets that spot, which isn't a good motivating place to be. So things are just so very complicated. It seems like we can't completely get our personal interest aside when we're trying to serve others.
We had a sick monk in the public hospital in Hubli, and since I was the monk in our monastery who spoke English, I was there helping him out and got to know the doctors who were caring for him. And there was one young doctor who was he was a surgeon, and this was the Indian sort of public health system, and he had made his way up to being a surgeon. And he wanted to talk. He seemed to want to discuss a dilemma he was facing, which was that he felt that though he was able to help one person or two people through his medical abilities, he wasn't helping society to the degree that he felt he could. And so he wanted to go into politics. And it was really interesting to hear this dilemma. I think that we view doctors as being really at the top of an ability to help. And here he was with experiencing the existential, what would you call it? Of this whole other, and I was saying to him, no, just do what you're doing well and develop it better. Politics is full of complications.
Just to get in the door, you have to be creepy.
So I think that this might be a good place to stop. Unless
Have another drink.
Today is the 14th?
Tomorrow's a big holiday in Italy. My neighbor used to do it.
Okay. So, now, when Darren shouts out no names, that means that no one has died.
Really? Darren? Right.
So as we say these prayers for those who have died, there are many who have died, and so please think of them, and we dedicate our recollection of the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha to all those who have died. So, I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roofs of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent, its words are excellent, it is uncorrupted, it is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavat is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure Dharma. Now we recite a prayer for the swift return of Chögyam Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lobsang Tuwang Tujajang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the victor Lobsang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening, yet you have withdrawn the activities of the former body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among all beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta, drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings, and wish-fulfilling jewel. Return as the glory of Losam Tenpe. The magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayama, and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face.
Thank you very much, Nicky. Very, very enlightening.